Hello and welcome back to My Own Worst Enemy. We are going to go through the setup of the playthrough of Federation Space. Now this is not the base game, as you can tell if you are familiar with that. This is the upgraded version, what I have done, and if you listen to the interview or watch the interview I posted, the counters are upgraded based upon information provided by Byron Henderson. So I'm trying to play a balanced game of this. Now, Federation Space, as released, was not balanced. It was a horribly broken game that just really doesn't work. It is a massacre for the Coalition side. The Alliance side can run all over the Coalition side. Now, this game, I'm hoping that with what I've got here, that we don't see that happen. We might, and I say that because in Byron's version of this game, you can see this side of the map here that I've got darkened out, and this is where the Lyran Empire would be, and they're not there. So I'm going through what a basic game of Federation Space would be, the base races that would be included in that game. This, by the way, is just it's car or window tint film that I've applied over half of this map. It works great for doing just this, blocking off a portion of the map you don't want to use. One word of warning though, if you want to try this at home, don't leave this on the map for any great length of time. There's some sort of film on this that actually, on this, you probably can't see it in the video, but actually put kind of a film coating over the map board. Now, I'm not that worried about it. This map board is, all these components you're looking at are test components. This is going to be a play test of this entire thing where I'm trying to go for checking balance of certain systems. So it's a play test, it's a draft copy, if you will. So I'm not too concerned about this film that got on here, but just take note that if you do use something like this, which it does work great, but don't leave it set up on your map for any length of time. Or maybe there's something you could put under that would protect it. Probably would have been the better thing to put some felt under there, I don't know. But this is going to be Federation Space with the base space races in it. The rules we are using, and again, if you watch the interview, I will be using the Federation Space 2.0 rules. This is actually Lyran Space rules with my own changes. It will follow pretty closely to the original Federation Space rules. So we're going to be using those rules with a lot of tweaks, and I will discuss those tweaks as we go along. And so what I wanted to do was just give you a brief look at the map and go over what is actually on the map and how this will work. So I will be using the card deck. The cards are over here. They are shuffled. And the combat resolution table, of course, is here. The combat tactical display is here at the bottom of the board. There's an EP tracker up here. I will not be using this EP tracker. What I will be using, and I'm going to print one of these out for every empire that's involved. So this is just an EP tracker. And yes, this is a little bit of a spreadsheet game, but it's really not that bad. You're just tracking the system that an empire owns, and you'll get 2 EPs per system. That could change based upon what planets get conquered. You could actually lose some EP on that. But there will be a sheet for tracking the economic points. I'll have a spreadsheet for each empire, as I said. And then below that, I have a construction sheet just to kind of keep track of what is being constructed. And if you played Federation Space and it's still intact in this game, the way you're going to build ships, you're going to build those at star bases or the home planet, the home system. You will spend EP, and you can only rebuild what you've lost. So you can't add any greater number of counters than what's already on the board. You can only bring back counters that have been destroyed. And so now let's take a quick look at the fleets. I'm going to grab the fleet organization charts. This is from the original game again. So all the counters that I have on the board, those are the actual counters that are listed here. So the same numbers that you would see in your game that you have, those counters appear on the board with 2 exceptions. The one exception is that the scout ships have been added to all the fleets, not just the Federation. So every fleet has a scout. Every empire has a scout in every fleet. The other difference is the counter values have all been changed from the base game. So one of the things that was wrong in Federation Space, for example, the Klingon Empire, the rating numbers on say the D7s, for instance, were grossly underrated compared to what the Federation had. So again, the Klingon Empire really stood no chance in this game. So I am going to use these fleet organization charts for the empires, and I have the fleets are set up on the map according to where they kind of tell you here on the organization chart. I say kind of because what I did was Byron has a rule that states that when an empire is not at war, you should have at least one ship on a base station. So I do have that in effect here. So every empire that has a base station, and I'll just grab this one real quick. You can see there's a base station marker on the board. And this is another difference. I have counters for base stations. The original game did not provide counters for base stations. So we have base stations, and I do have ships at every base station, so long as they're not at war. Over here we have the turn track, so I will be using this black disc to track the turns as we go along. Now, you look on here and you'll see, well, there's Klingons actually start, and the Zinti start turn 1. The Federation comes in turn 5, the Romulans come in turn 8. This is for the general scenario that exists in the base game. I'm not going to be using those rules. This is going to be more of a sandbox playthrough, and I'm going to have the way the war will begin will be kind of a random determination of exactly what happens and where it begins. I'll show you that in a second. We're going to ignore the entry points for these empires. They're going to enter whenever they enter, and we will play that through. Now, it also says begin economics on the board. We are going to leave the begin economics at turn 3, so an empire will start actually earning income on turn 3. So what's going to happen is the war is going to start, and these empires will have, and I think I'm probably going to go ahead and say that you're going to have 10 EPs held in the your account, if you will, at any time. And so you can have 10 empire points saved up so that when they do go to war, they'll at least have those 10 initially in their account. Once the war starts for the empire, then they'll start gaining the 2 EPs per system. And so we'll see that as the systems change and these empires these systems rather, start changing hands. So we've talked a little bit about the board. One thing I also did, I'll show you this real quick, is I have printed up this, it's really a negative image of the board. And what it does for me is, you can see there's a lot of ships on the board, and it really hides a lot of the base stations and even some of the well, not the home planets, but the other systems that the races have. So what this is just a cheat sheet. I can look at this and tell where planets are and where base stations are without having to pick up huge stacks. So I'm going to be using this as well. So if you see this, this is just my cheat sheet to tell me where a planet is or where a base station is. And so going back to the rules, I will talk about which rules I am using. Now, there are optional rules in Federation space, and so I'm going to just briefly go through which ones that I'm using. One of the things I mentioned in the interview with Byron was, if you look at and this one doesn't have it, but there is an option, and this is actually in the original rules. There's an option for having a ranged approach when you go into tactical combat. So as the ships start further away and they get closer and closer, certain races are better at firing at longer distances, and then some races are worse at firing, let's say, close up. So there is actually an optional rule that says you can have a initial long-range encounter, or kind of a mid-range encounter, and then the close-up encounter, and then you start the tactical battles. I am not going to use that in this game. In talking with Byron, I think that might be a little unbalanced for the Klingons, because they suffer at long range, and I think they're going to suffer as it is in this game. So I'm not going to be using the ship ranges, combat range. The ship capture rules are also something that I'm going to use ship capture, but I'm going to tweak it in that you can only use ship capture, I think, in certain special circumstances. And what I mean by that is, I may let a race attempt a ship capture if the opposing side is down to, say, 1 ship. I don't want to get bogged down with these little, you've got a huge combat going on, 6, 7 ships involved, and they're trying to capture ships as well as fight. So we're just going to say, if you're down to maybe 1 ship, you're outnumbered, then maybe you can attempt a ship capture. Same thing for self-destruct. So self-destruct is also a rule in this game, and I think I'm not going to let anyone implement that unless they're down to maybe 1 or 2 ships, and it just looks like it's the only option. There's an Orion Pirate optional rule. We're going to be using Byron's rules for this, and basically what that is, after the war starts, after, I'm going to say maybe 3 turns, I'll put a token out on the board that'll show when this can start, and I'll add some cards into the card deck that aren't specific to the game. I've got some cards that I've pulled out. Like I said, I'm not using the Lyrans. So there's some Lyran cards in there. There's some alternate races in there. I'm going to put a couple of those cards into the deck after a certain amount of turns once the war begins. And if you pull a card, you might be allowed to buy some of these optional Orion units to use in your fleet. It won't be a guarantee, but I think that's how we're going to work that. And you'll see that as we get into the game and as we go along. Scouts are going to be in the game, like I said. I'm going to use the scout rules. There's long-range scanners, there's electronic countermeasures, there's cards that will implement some of those things. So I'm going to be using scouts, like I said, with all of the fleets and in the card deck. So I mentioned the card deck now a couple of times. Let me grab some of these cards. These are shuffled. I'll shuffle again, once again before I start the game. I will show you the top card here. So this is the back of the card, and this is the front of the card. So in this case, you can see that this is a legendary engineer. Repair any single ship that you own immediately. This card may be played while in combat. So pretty powerful card there. And I'm just going to shove that into the deck again randomly. So the way I'm going to handle cards, once an empire is at war, you're going to start getting cards every, let me grab the rules here, because I think it's every other turn. So every other turn, once the war begins, you're going to have cards coming into your hand. And the way I'm going to do this, I'm not going to have a set number of cards for each individual empire. Well, I am, but this is going to be the new part. This is going to be something we're going to try. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have, so the Federation, and I've got a little cheat card here that I made to show what I'm talking about here. So the way it's going to work, card draw is going to work when say the Federation enters the war, they'll draw one card. And the card pool is going to be according to the side that the empire is fighting on. So we're going to have a coalition card pool, and we're going to have an alliance card pool. So the alliance forces would be the Federation, the Zinti, the Gorn, and the Hydran. So what's going to happen is as they enter into war, they're going to get to draw one card. And then every other turn, those four empires will draw only one card. So that's going to limit the alliance hand size to 4. At any one time, the entire alliance may have 4 cards in their hand. Now there are cards in here that will trigger events. So the way I'm going to do this is when, let's say it's the Federation player's turn or the Federation's side's turn, they're gonna, if they want to buy their card or they draw their card, and it is a bad event that says, you know, you take one heavy cruiser out of your fleet, it's destroyed, that's going to have to apply to the Federation. But if it's a card that says during battle you can repair one of your ships immediately, that card will go into, we'll put it with the Federation, but any of the alliance players can use that card. So if you were playing this multiplayer, let's say the Gorn were in battle and the Federation held that card, they could ask the Federation player, look, I'm in battle, could I restore one of my ships here? Would you hand me that card? Since I'm doing this solitaire, I'm going to have a pool for the Alliance and a pool for the Coalition where I will be pulling those cards and using them in the game. So again, to summarize, the Coalition players, there's only 2. There's the Klingons and then there's the Romulans. Their hand size will be 4. They're going to draw 2 cards and they're going to get 2 cards every other turn to balance out the hand size for the entire side. So they'll get 2, the Romulans will get 2, 1 for everybody else. So that's the way we are going to handle the cards in this game. And so off to the side here, I have the Orion player, or not player, there's no Orion player in this game. I have the Orion fleet, I should say. And so the Orions will come into the game through card play, and a side may spend economic points to try to get the Orions to come in and help them on their side. And there's going to be 2 ways they can help. They can add a fleet or a ship to the fleet of the side that actually buys the Orion pirates, or they can also be used to conduct commerce raiding. So say the Klingons may want to have the Orions go into Federation space and try to sap those economic points from some of these home systems in here. I keep calling them home systems. The home system is going to be for the Federation to be like Sol, that is their home system, and each race will have a home system. These are just planetary systems. And I say that because the home systems will have certain things that the other systems won't have, like a planetary defense, and we'll see that when we get into battle. What else? The combat tracker, or the combat resolution table is here. I'll use this little red cube to mark where we are on the combat resolution table when we go through combat, and we'll be looking for whether we're damaging or destroying ships on that. Again, the tactical combat is going to be taking place actually on the board here, so everything should be taking place on this board. So I don't think there's really much else left to do. I just wanted to kind of go through and show you the board here real quickly. Let's zoom in. We'll zoom in and I'll show you what some of these counters look like close up. So here we are zoomed in, and we are zoomed in along the neutral zone here. Actually, it reminds me, I need to talk about, there are some alliances in place here, and we'll talk about those when we zoom back out. But you can see here, here's the Romulan neutral zone. These are the stacks of the Romulan ships. And like I said, these counters have been upgraded, or at least a lot of these numbers have changed from the base game. So for instance, here, this is a Romulan Klingon ship, and it is an 876. Across the neutral zone, you can see a Federation command cruiser, Federation heavy cruiser. I'm not sure if those numbers actually changed. The 886, I think, might be original to the game. But when we need to zoom in, I will zoom in so that we can see what's going on in the game here. So let's zoom back out, and I will talk about the alliances and the treaties that are in effect. All right, so alliances. I have the alliance sheet here. So what we are looking at, and I will hold this up, these are the treaties that are in place for each empire. So you can see there's a Federation Romulan treaty in place. We talked about that neutral zone. So entry by either side is an automatic declaration of war. So no ships of any kind can enter the Romulan neutral zone. On the Klingon side over here, there's a Klingon neutral zone. The Klingon neutral zone is the same thing, but any combat ship that enters the neutral zone is a declaration of war. So this goes back to the Organian Peace Treaty, and it says non-combat ships are free to go in here and try to influence these other systems to get them to appear on their side. Which brings me to another point. There are two systems in the Klingon Federation neutral zone. There's Babylon, and there is, and I can't read that, Dilithum, and I am going to mispronounce some of the names on the board. So these two systems currently do not belong to either side. So we have to keep that in mind. So that may actually be one of the things that start the war, who knows. So that's the Klingon Federation alliance that's in place. Now there's a Federation Gorn Treaty, which says that a side will come to the aid of the other side if attacked by the Romulan Empire. So the Gorn are up here, Federation's here. So what that says is if the Romulans attack the Gorn, the Federation are going to join the war. If the Romulans attack the Federation, the Gorn are going to join the war. That does not mean that if the Gorn attack the Romulans, the Federation will have to attack. So it's strictly a defensive type thing. The Romulans would have to be the aggressor for that treaty to take place or come into effect. There's a Klingon-Romulan treaty in place, and it says the Klingons provide technology and ships to the Romulans. It does not provide for any mutual assistance against the Federation. So kind of a weird one here. And that's how the Romulans got their Klingon ships. There's a technology alliance in place. They do trade through this lower neutral zone that runs along the Tholian border down here. So they can, I'm not sure how this is going to work game-wise, if they're actually going to be able to run ships through there without declaring war on the Federation. We'll have to see how that plays out. There is also a Zinti-Hydran treaty in place. So the Hydrans are down here, the green units you see down here. The Zinti are the white ones that you see at the top of the map. And that says that it calls for a combined effort against the Klingons no matter who the aggressor is. So basically, whether the Klingons started, the Zinti started, or the Hydrans started, it's going to be a free-for-all on this side of the board. So they will come to the aid no matter what happens of the opponent that was attacked. The Federation Zinti Treaty provides unspecified military aid in case of Klingon attack against either empire. So this is another vague one. If the Klingons attack one or the other, then there's going to be some sort of military aid to the other side, and how that gets worked out, just as the treaty doesn't say, we don't know how that's going to work. So those are the treaties that are in place, and that is about it. So the only thing left to do is figure out how this war is going to start. And we're going to do that now. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to determine where and why this war will begin. So let me grab, I'm going to need 2 D10s. We're going to do a percentile roll, and I've got a chart where we will figure out how this war starts. So I'm going to grab the dice tower. We'll put that down here so we can see what the result is. I've got 2 D10s. This is a percentile roll. Now what I'm going to do is I've got on my alliance piece of paper, on the back side of that, I've got how the war starts. So how does the war start? I'm going to roll this D100, it is, percentile. And based upon what we roll, will tell us how the war, where and how and why this war is going to start. All right, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and roll and see how this war is going to start. I'm going to roll the percentile dice and let's see what we get. That is a 92. Now that may be bad, it may be something unusual. A 92 that the Hydrants are going to attack the Klingons. So that 92 tells us that the Hydrants attack the Klingons. So that's going to mean that in this corner of the map, the Hydrants have decided for whatever reason they've had enough. They're going to attack the Klingons. Now we know immediately from what I just showed you that the Zinti are going to have to respond with the Hydrants. So this war may explode pretty darn fast. As the Hydrant attack, the Zinti are going to attack the Klingons from the north side of the map. So that's going to be interesting to see. Now remember, once the Zinti attack the Klingons and they're into this war, what is the Federation going to do? We don't know. We're going to have to find that out as well. So things could get interesting really fast here. This is going to be interesting indeed. So what we're going to do, when we come back, what I will do is we will start the game. We will start with turn 1 with the Hydrants and Klingons at war. They will have their starting, well, let's see. I think they're, I'm going to grab the sequence of play here real quick. So I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure that in the sequence of play, the economic phase is the last thing. So the economic phase, we will have, when the war starts, we will have the Klingons and the Hydrants will have 10 EP in the bank. When they get to the end of that first turn and they go through the economic phase, that's when they'll get their economic points. So we'll leave it like that. So what I'm going to do, I will stop it here, and I'm not going to move these forces around. We're going to leave the forces as you see them here. As part of the gameplay in turn 1, the Hydrants will decide to attack the Klingons. They will move their fleets and attack. We'll see how the Klingons respond. So there you go. I just wanted to run through this real quick to show you the game setup, the map setup, and what I've got planned. And when we come back, I will we'll play through the first turn and see how this war unfolds. I think it's going to be really, really neat to see how the Hydrants, the Klingons, and then the Zinti are going to start this war. So we're going to start on the left side of the map and see what happens. As always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, think about doing that and you'll get notifications of when these videos come out and you'll be able to keep caught up on how the general war here in Federation space is going. Thank you for watching and I'll see you back here next time.